Okay, so welcome, guys. Episode 11, Cruising 101, Part 3. We're going to talk about pre-boarding prep. This is Suitcase Divas. My name is Denise Diabaldi with Redbirds Travel.
And I'm Cheryl Garcia with ABCD Adventures.
Yeah, so let's go there. So we are about a month out from our free MSC cruise. Cheryl, how excited are you?
I'm very excited.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. So we're flying to New York City, Times Square, and then we're spending the night, and then we are going to the Brooklyn terminal and going to the MSC cruise line, headed down to the Bahamas for a week. And so we're talking about pre-boarding, like things that so we're this far out, you have to start giving information at this point. You start getting emails from the time that you book your cruise, and then when it starts getting like time to get all of the info that you have to get, you got to get a little more serious. So we're going to be talking about some pre-boarding um, information and what is the best way to get started with that, Cheryl.
So yeah, like you mentioned, they email you quite a bit once you book your cruise.
Hmm.
And we just got the email yesterday that we're within our 30-day window. So it's time to check in. So that
Yes.
means it's time to start uploading our documents, getting our stuff in order. And how we do that is we want to make sure that we have the cruise line app. All cruise lines have an app. And that's where you're going to find a lot of your information, and it's easy access. So I always recommend people download the
And
app.
it's always free. The app's
Correct.
always free.
Yeah, so that's where I usually go to check, but you can also go to their website and log in, and your cruise information will be there. And this is where you'll find your steps. They're very good about outlining what you need to do, when you need to do it, and how you need to do it. So
Yep.
for us, we got the information. This is our both of our first times cruising with MSC. So
Yes.
like we
Super
said, it's
excited.
different for everyone.
Yep.
Right now, like we have to take a picture, upload our picture, register our credit card for the cruise, whatever one that we're going to be using on board, upload our passport or birth certificate, fill out our healthcare form. It walks you through that kind of information. So this is where you go print your luggage tags, which we're going to go over in a little bit. But these are the two spots that you'll get most of your information inside, as well as in the email. There should be links. So just make sure you have the app and know how to access the websites and logging into that. But right now, Denise is going to tell you about traveling with a passport versus a birth certificate on a cruise.
Okay, so yeah, so this is really one of the most important questions and most frequent questions I get because I do a lot of bookings down to the Bahamas, the Caribbean. It's a really easy, nice, shorter cruise. It can be up to 7 days, but we have some 3 day, 4 day, 5 day cruises, porting out of anywhere from Charleston, South Carolina, down to porting out of Florida, even up to New York, where we're going from. So the difference you need to know is most people are like, well, if I'm going to the Caribbean or I'm going to the Bahamas, that certainly is not the United States. So I have to have a passport, right? Well, it's a little bit of a gray area. And as a travel agent, we always are advised to have a passport. Of course, I always have my passport and my TSA pre-check and all that good stuff. But um, you are allowed to go if it's called a closed loop cruise, meaning you're porting out of the United States, you're coming back into the United States. So that is a closed loop cruise. So instead of having to be mandatory passport, at that point, they can take your driver's license and it has to be a certified copy of your birth certificate. So you don't have to have a passport to go out of the United States, to go to the Caribbean or the Bahamas. There are places that they certainly will not let you in if you don't have a valid passport, but it's kind of like a little bit of a gray area that you can go to this tropical place. And as long as you start in the United States and you end up in the United States, then you can do that. Same with Puerto Rico. Even though you have to fly there, it is part of the United States. So you can have a cruise starting in Puerto Rico, ending up in Puerto Rico or Miami or South Carolina. As long as you start in the United States and end up in the United States, that is considered a closed loop voyage. And you have to have only your driver's license and a copy of your birth certificate. So it's kind of like a little blessing in disguise for many people that do not have their passport.
Right. So even though it's not required, I will say I think the process is faster getting on and off the ship if you have your passport. When you,
Okay.
especially leaving, when you disembark, there will be two lines, one for those that have a passport and then one for those that are getting off with their birth certificate. On the last cruise I went on last April, we did not even wait when we went through the line with our
Nice.
passports, but
Nice.
we passed so many
And
people.
I think that does depend on the cruise because I had my passport. Nick and I both had my passport, and we were in this big ass long line. And they did not separate anybody that just had passports. So I think that depends on the ship and the cruise line.
Well, and there were people coming out saying, "Hey guys, there's two lines." So it wasn't very. I will on the last cruise, which was Carnival. It wasn't very distinct. They actually had workers coming out saying, "Hey, there are actually two lines," and that kind of got us moving because we just jumped in the only line they had. Then they're like, "No, if you've got a passport, you need to go this way."
See,
So
that's sweet. I wish there were people doing that because our line was like an hour long and nobody came out to say,
I think we
hey,
once we got off the ship, it took us like as long as it took us to walk the plank. Or it's not. I know that's
walk
not
the
what it's
plank.
called, but that's what I think of. Walk off of the ship, walk down through the port or through the the little port place, and walk out to the thing. That's
That's
all it
awesome.
took us. So that is a perk. I do feel, and I've heard this from others, and I've read this as well, the passport line is faster. It's not required. So just remember if you're, which we're going to talk about this in a minute, you're pushing your flight, if you're leaving the day you get back and you have to be out quick, you know, that might be a perk for having your passport. So
Yeah, well, that is good information. The other thing that I know you have to have is a boarding pass, and so it's similar to what you'd need for a flight. A cruise boarding pass is a document that shows you've checked your sailing, you've set up all of your onboard charges, meaning you've given that credit card. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to be charged for anything. If you've already prepaid your gratuities, you've already done everything you've done, as long as you're not charging more to your credit card for like in the gift shop or whatever, then you're not necessarily, because you upload your credit card, you're not going to be charged anything unless you actually use that credit
because
card.
it's important to note they do not handle cash transactions on the cruise. Like you can tip in cash, but they do not, like you don't pay for your drinks. You don't pay
Correct.
even in the gift shop. You're not paying for your
Everything
stuff.
goes to that card,
Right.
typically your room card, and you can use onboard credit that way too. That's sweet
Yeah.
too, because we like had onboard credit that just came with our ship, with our cruise. And by the end of it, Nick ended up buying like a t-shirt and stuff like that. And we ordered room service the last night of the cruise. We ordered pizza and a bottle of wine. So we just hung out.
Yeah.
We were pretty like done. We were at sea. We are coming back, and I was like, let's just order room service, babe. We've got like $50
And
of
if you're in
onboard
the
credit.
casino, if you swipe your room card, like you're not using cash,
Right.
you're not buying chips, you're not doing any of that. But if you don't want to use a credit card, they do have the option to put cash on your room once you get on board. It's kind of like an ATM, at least the last one I was on. You go and you put cash and that goes on there. But they are going to ask that you have some form of payment on just for like when you stay at a hotel, they ask for something for incidentals
Right.
to happen. So you will have to put something on there. Doesn't mean you have to actually use it though.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But it's better to show up with your picture in there. You know your room number. You have all the information. You've uploaded your card. Other thing is they're going to do a health information screening. So I know it's not COVID times. Thank God we are beyond that. But I will say, like, they're going to want to know if you're pregnant, if you've got any health risks. You do have to fill out a basic health screening just so they know if for whatever reason you go down on the ship, they're going to read your key card and we're going to see like, oh, are you diabetic? Do you have high blood pressure? It's just good. All of that information goes in a pinch. In a case of emergency, they know the best way to treat you. Otherwise, like back in COVID times, we had to upload our COVID
COVID
shot
card.
back.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to had our vaccination cards and all that good stuff. some cruises still want to see that. So if you have it, it's better to upload everything you have. Now it's not really as prevalent. So I think that's great. Um, Also visas, other destination specific documents. So it depends on the country you're going to, but sometimes you have to have a visa to go there. Also, people don't get with this virtual age, everything's on the phone. You still have to print luggage tags. And I will say, if you're flying in, like Nick and I flew from Charlotte to Florida, and we put our cruise luggage tags on our bags while we flew. And I would say that's a big no-no because Nick's got ripped off because they're throwing your bags in and out
Right.
just like the regular plane. Mine stayed on, his did not. Even though we bought the little Amazon, like I'll have a checklist. We will have that absolutely down the road of these cute little handy dandy things you can buy on Amazon to protect all of your things.
So even
But
with the Amazon, because I ordered the luggage tag, mine went in a piece of plastic and had a
mine
lock
did
on
too.
it, and
And it
it's
had a lock.
still ripped off.
His still got ripped off. I had
Oh,
mine. So we had to spend a little extra time at the little place to fill out a little faux paper boarding pass
luggage
for his
tag.
luggage tag. So you do, and some people show up and don't even have luggage tags. So that's extra time in line filling out information. Like when I show up, I want to be ready to partay, get
Yes.
on the cruise and be there and have a good time. So the more you do up front, the less you have to do while you're there. You know what I'm saying?
I agree with you. Yeah, don't put it on until you like both times we stayed the night before, which we highly recommend everybody stay if you're going on cruise, stay arrive to your arrive but the night before. So I would always put my cruise luggage tag on that morning when I took my airline luggage
Yeah.
tag off. So
That
that
was smart. Like we didn't pick up on the memo the first
I
time.
didn't think, but I would have assumed those were safe because those
No, I
they're
mean
pretty
they
sturdy.
say they are, but I don't know. Maybe he didn't screw it in all the way, and they are pretty durable, but I think going forward we maybe would just not put it on until after we get out of the airport before we're
Right.
getting ready to go to our next
And also
destination.
take a picture of your luggage tags just so you have it in case. I mean, you can always go back in and look at it when you log in, but it's nice to have a picture or two copies. I do print double copies of everything. I also print, like we have talked about before, print everything, our boarding
I do think
passes. Yeah.
that is noteworthy. So I know we're in the digital age and everybody wants to be green and have a smaller footprint and let's put everything on our phone. But if your battery dies on your phone, if the Wi-Fi signal is blocked, if your phone is lost or stolen, you should always, always print hard copies of all of that stuff, your boarding pass, your cruise information, if you are staying in a hotel before or after, your flight numbers, all of that, confirmation numbers, boarding passes, just have a printed reference of anything, just even if it's a one piece of paper that you have for everybody in the book, everybody in the party, you should always have that hard copy in case digital or
Right.
online is not available.
And
That is just like you live
just
and learn, right?
right, absolutely. And just want to say it's also a good idea to leave that entire packet, everything you printed out, back home with somebody also, so that they know where you are.
Emergency
They have all
contact,
that. Yeah.
100%,
So whoever your
100%.
emergency contact is, make sure they have all that information. So if the cruise line has to call or you've
Yeah,
lost
they
all your
should have
stuff.
your cruise number, your
Yeah.
doctor's office, your credit card company, your bank number, local embassies, consulates, countries you're visiting. You should have all of that information so that if they're your emergency contact and you get back in touch with them, you're like, okay, what is all my stuff? I need your help. Help me. Like, I lost all my shit. I need your help.
And this includes a copy of your passport if, or your birth certificate, either one, whatever you're traveling with. But I remember the very first time I went on a cruise, I was not a travel agent at the time. And my travel agent actually requested a copy of my passport so that they had that in case anything went wrong, which I think is extremely important because my family didn't even have a copy of it. So if I had lost my passport and got stuck in a at one of the ports, I would have had to go through all the hoops and stuff. I mean, you still would, but having a copy of it
Right.
really expedites the process. So
Absolutely.
you,
Same with travel insurance. I
oh
always
yes,
opt for travel insurance. And if you're in an emergency, you definitely want to have that travel insurance information because they're not if you have to get medical treatment, if you have to stay at a hotel, if you have to do whatever, you should always have your travel insurance information so that you're giving it to the people and it's much easier to make claims. And if your trip's interrupted or canceled, you have the key information handy so you can get help immediately. If you don't like, I have travel insurance, but I have no idea what the name of it is or what my policy number is or anything like that, you're going to have a lot harder terms of getting help. So
right.
make sure you have that. All photocopies, all important documentation. Um, it's just, you just want to be prepared. Be like the Girl
Have
Scout, be
a
like the Boy
document
Scout.
go bag.
Yes,
So, and I would recommend it be in a waterproof Ziploc
yes.
type thing. There are files that you can zip up that are waterproof. My last cruise, I took my teen daughter and her friends. They went on their senior trip. I
Like
carried with
that.
us. Yes, you did. As before, also before I was a travel agent. We in my book bag around ports, I'm still carrying all their emergency
You're the
contact.
mama
I have
bear.
all that.
Right.
So
Hmm.
for any party that I go with, I'm getting their info. Who you got to designate that person that's going to have it, but then other people need to know. I'm going to over prepare. So just wait till y'all hear next week's when we're talking about packing what we over prepare for packing. But this,
Right.
we're within our 30-day window, so there is a lot to not a lot, but you want to make sure you're double checking, dotting all your I's and crossing your T's, and that includes checking on your hotel, as he's mentioned earlier, which we highly recommend flying in the night before. You want to make sure your hotel is booked, everything's good with that, and your transportation. Like, how are you getting from the airport to the hotel and then the hotel to the port? Some hotels will actually have transportation to the port. And does that have a fee? Our last cruise, we didn't think it had a fee and we were scrambling at the last minute. We knew it had transportation, but we didn't realize it had a cost. We figured it out, but it would have been nice to have that ahead of time. You
And some
all
of the cruise ships will say, "Do you want transfers to and from airport?" That's what we
right.
did for
That's
ours.
considered like
And
one of their excursions, which you can find on the app or
yes,
on the
and it will be
website.
on the app and they will offer that. So
That's a
so
good
I
idea.
I think that the transfers to from the airport to the cruise, if you're but we're going to directly to a hotel, so it's not really the same. But when
Right.
we were flying in the same day and we didn't stay, so we were risking it, but we had time. It was a very early flight. So yeah, we just opted to do the transfer from the airport to the actual cruise terminal. And I want to say it was like $50 a person, but it was an hour away. And I don't, I just, we just booked it because it was convenient.
That's what we
Probably
did
we could have
for
got an
ours
Uber, but
on the way back. We stayed at the hotel, took the hotel transportation to the port, and then on the way back, we booked the excursion through the cruise line. Also, if you are driving, you need to consider how much parking is going to be because if you're parking at the port, there is a fee.
it's,
Also,
there is a fee and it's not cheap. Typically, it
right,
depends on the port. But I want to say when we cruised out of Charleston on Carnival for our anniversary a couple years ago, I think it's maybe $100 for 7 days. So just factor that in. I mean, $100 for 7 days, not exorbitantly high. I'm
I
sure
mean,
it'd be
you
more in
because you
Miami or
drove,
LA or something.
so
Yeah,
you didn't have to
we
pay for
didn't
your
fly.
hotel, right? Or your flight. So these are just the things within your 30-day window you want to be checking off. Also, double check your airline because I was actually on the phone today fixing mine and Denise's airline or our flights to New York for this
Thank
cruise
you,
because
Cheryl.
it had got the
Our whole flight disappeared
yeah, it
on
had
the way
gotten
home.
changed. We book a later flight on the way home because you're not sure when you're going to get off. We don't want to be rushed. We're in New York. It's an hour from the port to the airport, so we want to give ourselves time. And they actually changed our flight to way earlier, and we couldn't get seats. It was just a mess. So I called, spent a good bit of time. They were great on the phone. They fixed it for us, but it's because you got to check it when you're within your 30-day window, let's keep checking that stuff out. You also want to check, go ahead if you've made some pre-cruise purchases on the app or the website, any of your onboard purchases, your excursions, you want to double check and make sure none of that's changed. And then going from there, just double checking your excursions and
Absolutely. And there's things you're not allowed to have on board. Should we go into that, Cheryl?
okay.
All right. So there's basic things that you should know not to bring, like guns. But there's other things that seem like, why can't I bring that on there, right? Like a steamer. They typically don't want you to bring like irons or steamers. Certain sunscreens, and I'll tell you this is important because we're going to actually encounter this when we go on our cruise. So some are not seen safe, not deemed safe if they've got, oh shit, these words, oxybenzone, octocrylene. Essentially, if you're going to dive, scuba dive, or if you're going out into the tropical waters where you're going to affect the coral reefs, you have to get certain sunscreens that are not going to damage the coral reefs.
They're reef safe
So,
sunscreens and they are
yeah.
labeled as such. Yes.
And you know what? And it says that some of them you can get a fine of $1,000 or more if they find, like, if you're like look like you dropped a friggin' veggie stick in the water and it's got rainbow coming out of
Oil,
it.
yeah, like you made an oil spill or
Like
something. Yeah.
oil been spill out while you're snorkeling, they can fine you $1,000 because essentially you're detrimenting their coral reefs. So you have to take that seriously. And we are going to do a snorkeling on a sunken ship in Ocean Cay at the marina. So I'm excited and I will be purchasing
And we'll talk about
the
that and and give you some examples of
give
those.
you
And
more examples,
yes,
maybe
yeah.
brands, because I wasn't sure of the brands either. I will say that it's saying that Hawaii, U.S. Virgin Islands, Aruba, Key West, Florida, Bonaire, and Mexico, Cozumel, they're all saying you have to have reef safe sunscreens. They're mineral based, and they're saying Think Sports, Alba Botanica, Black Girl Sunscreen, Sun Bum. Those are just a few, and we'll also look into some other ones just to give you a variety. But I think those can't be bad ones because
Right. So just
they're
be
listing
careful.
them.
That's one of the things you want to not bring on is
Right. And depending on the cruise ship, alcohol, like don't try to sneak in hard grain alcohol in your Listerine bottle. I mean, you can, but we're not advocating for that. But they're saying typically like Royal Caribbean permits a 700 milliliter bottle of wine or champagne. Carnival allows the same, 750 milliliters. It has to always be on your carry-on. Do not try to pack that in the one that they're bringing through to the airport through the ship and everything. It has to be on your carry-on. If you get busted, they don't want you trying to do any CBD or marijuana. You can be thrown off certain ships. It's still illegal. I know several states have decriminalized possession of marijuana, but because they're doing so many different places, they do not allow it on cruises at all. So just be mindful of that.
and I want to say about the alcohol, if you're in a port that you buy alcohol, you can bring that back on the ship and they will check it for you to
They
get
hold it
at
for
the
you
end. They
until,
do
right.
hold it for you. Because I know like in Nassau they have the distillery and stuff and the Bahamas, you want some of that Caribbean rum because I did bring some back, but they
Yes,
check
honey.
it and hold it for you to get at the end of the cruise.
And in the Dominican Republic, Mama Juana, that was like one of their local drinks
Mhm.
that they made that was rum based. Um, so
Oh,
yes,
and then
but
you were
you can
saying,
buy it, but you can't get it till you're off the ship back
right.
when you're back to port. Um, the other thing I will say, extension cords and those USB surge protective power strips, just make sure that they say that they're cruise compliant because it has to meet a criteria if you're using receptacles, USB charging ports, European plug adapters, a 110 volt, 220 volts. You have to make sure that you're being compliant to what they can accommodate on the ship because there's so many people on the ship. One exception would be if you're doing essential medical equipment, such as a CPAP or like a nebulizer machine. They
Yeah.
will give a forgiveness if you have to have a higher voltage to run a machine like that. So those are all things to keep in mind.
And if you do bring, and we'll talk about this in depth more, but if you do bring some form of extension cord, because usually outlets are very limited in a cabin, it
The
can't be
newer
a,
ships have figured this out, but yes, if you're staying on a ship that's more than 15 years old, even though they've been refurbished and they look amazing, they still don't have the
enough
new age.
outlets.
We need
Yeah.
outlets
We have
everywhere.
so many devices that need charging, but you can't, your extension cord cannot be a surge protector. That's a red flag right away, and they'll pull that. And then surprisingly, which I was shocked by the steamers, but also coffee makers and tea kettles are other things there. If
And
you
a lot of places won't let you have the flat irons either. No curling irons, no flat irons.
So I haven't seen that. So if you go on TikTok and you search up what did they call it? The cruise table of shame or something like that, you'll see video of people going to pick up their stuff. There was
Yeah,
some crazy things because here's the other good thing to note. Like you were saying, knives, you can't sharp things like that.
yeah.
Swords. I know people that travel
No
to
candles or
Alaska.
incense. They don't want any open flame, which just makes
Right.
sense. It's just
Yeah.
people get partying, leave it open, it catches to a flame. We've got the whole ship on fire in the middle of the Caribbean. It just makes sense that some stuff is not allowed.
Right.
Um, Now I will say that decorations, this is a big thing. Like some people do not want, we decorate our door. Like we are will be having a suitcase diva
On
door
our door.
decoration.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but it really they're saying more things like helium balloons and stuff. Some it depends on the cruise line. So Disney and Carnival say no to bringing balloons on board, but Royal Caribbean and MSC allow them. So you always have to look at your cruise ship and see what's allowed. If you're celebrating a big anniversary or a family reunion or a birthday party. But we like to do the little door signs just because they're really handy. You're in a long row of doors. We're going
It's
to have
so
up our little cruise
identical.
sign. They all look
Mhm.
identical. You've been having a drink, got the drink package. By the end of the night, I'm looking for that friggin' door sign that says Suitcase Divas to call me home. That's my
Right.
beacon of my mama ship at the end
Yeah.
of the night. So I do say, and not many people don't allow like little like. However, if you want to bring a poster board and roll it up and tape it to your door, they just don't want it to be a hazard. The sea gets rocking, they don't want anything that's going to be flying around or anything that could be,
And some
you know.
allow tape, some don't. Most of the doors are magnetic, so any type
Mhm.
of magnet or magnet hanger would work.
And we'll be adding those on our also on our list because those little magnets with the hooks, I hang my necklaces up on there. I hang my bathing suits up there to dry. Like so we will definitely be for sure doing some our packing list um and giving some links of things that we know to be very, very useful for cruising.
So yeah, that's what next week's episode will be about is what do you bring? What do you pack?
Absolutely.
And yeah, so we'll be going over that, but this was just a really big deal for us to say, hey, don't forget when you're within your 30-day window, check off all your documents, all double check your reservations,
And
how
be
to be
excited about
prepared.
it because
Yeah.
you're going on a cruise, right?
Yeah, it's your countdown. It's so nice when it gets under that 30-day mark, and then things start
Yes,
progressing. So this is
absolutely.
just our tips and tricks on how to be prepared for pre-boarding.
Yes, awesome, awesome. And don't forget to go back to episode 10. We are extending that for the prize drawing for the wine tumbler. So get on there, listen to episode 10. Like we said, we are on Spotify, we are on Apple Podcast, we are on what else are we on, Cheryl?
Um,
We're on
Um,
Instagram. We're on
Facebook and
Facebook.
TikTok. Yeah.
Suitcase Divas. Suitcase Divas. Facebook is Suitcase Divas podcast, but everywhere else is Suitcase Divas. So find us and listen to episode 10, like our and comment of the to win on the contest. You guys got this, and we will see you next week. Have a great week, all.
Bye, guys.